2 Corinthians 10. Now I, Paul, myself beseech you, by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, who in presence am base among you, but being absent am bold toward you. But I beseech you that I may not be bold when I am present with that confidence wherewith I think to be bold against some, which think of us as if we walked according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. Do ye look on things after the outward appearance? If any man trust to himself that he is Christ's, let him of himself think this again, that as he is Christ's, even so are we Christ's. For though I should boast somewhat more of our authority, which the Lord hath given us for edification, and not for your destruction, I should not be ashamed, that I may not seem as if I would terrify you by letters. For his letters say they are weighty and powerful, but his bodily presence is weak, and his speech contemptible. Let such an one think this, that such as we are in word by letters when we are absent, such will we be also in deed when we are present. For we dare not make ourselves of the number, or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves, but they, measuring themselves by themselves, and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. But we will not boast of things without our measure, but according to the measure of the rule which God hath distributed to us, a measure to reach even unto you. For we stretch not ourselves beyond our measure, as though we reached not unto you. For we are come as far as to you also in preaching the gospel of Christ, not boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labors, but having hope, when your faith is increased, that we shall be enlarged by you according to our rule abundantly, to preach the gospel in the regions beyond you, and not to boast in another man's line of things made ready to our hand. But he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. For not he that commendeth himself is approved, but whom the Lord commendeth.
Good evening. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014. This is your host, Mike Callahan, and welcome to the Watchman News. Well, that has direct relation to what I want to speak about tonight. It really does. It has a lot to do with it. On that note, we have things that we typically get out of the way first. The first would be The first would happen to be suspicious observers. I didn't put the link up. See how I am? I put it up for you guys, but let's go ahead and get suspicious observers out of the way. I don't have an absolute ton of news to get rushed through because I wanted to take a little bit of time this evening to speak to you about some facts, maybe a bit of opinion. I really don't, there's a difference between facts and opinion. I do my best really to keep opinion out, and I try to base everything on fact. And some things, there's some people out there who say, oh, well, if you look up at the sky and it's blue, that's only an opinion, and or whatever the case may be. The color red, well, that's an opinion. No, there are facts. There are facts. It's just some people don't like to face them. When they feel uncomfortable with them, they will try and spin them off as opinion. Other things are indeed opinions. And I'm going to do my best tonight when I speak about the things that I listed in the heading, when I speak about responsibility, namely self-responsibility and narcissism. I'm going to do my best to speak directly from fact and keep my opinion out of it because, opinions just don't matter in the mix. They don't. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the narcissism issue. And it all relates to the lack of self-responsibility. It's this vicious cycle that if we don't get stopped, we got some nasty stuff coming. So let's get suspicious observers report for the day out of the way, and then I'll get on with that.
Good morning, folks. Yesterday we saw a sun-diving comet. Make that 2. The second is very faint, kind of difficult to see, but as the big one we watched yesterday disintegrates upon approach, another little sundiver does head in. We've seen so many sun-diving comets trigger CMEs, and yet no official acknowledgement of the correlation is admitted. And while there were no eruptions on the Earth-facing side of the sun, you see that flicker of light on the side? That happens during backside eruptions, and boy did we get them. At least 4 CMEs came off the backside with a definitive X-class solar flare associated, and maybe 2. Blast actually rocked the Stereo B satellite. The eruption looks enormous on Soho, Lascaux, and you can see the secondary eruptions that follow it. Astonishingly, right after the big blast, even without space weather and even with the blast on the backside, Earth's magnetosphere faltered and allowed major plasma penetration into the Earth system. At this time, there is proton bombardment at Earth's poles, and the low-energy electrons are surging as well. We usually only see this with Earth-directed flares, but we had nothing significant there. But could we? The Earth-facing sunspots are traversing towards the departing limb with magnetic simplicity absolute in all but the trailing region down south. Even here, we've got great mixing potential, but no Delta-class interaction at this time. Looking at the last day of the sun, you can see she's calm in Earth's direction. Southern dark coronal hole is Earth-facing now, and that big plasma filament is beginning to lift up. Definitely got to watch that one. The solar wind, relatively calm, but for some density waves the last couple hours, not causing any geomagnetic instability. Let's look beneath our feet and see what's shaking in Iceland. The rumbling does continue, and it has indeed moved north. This is now where we see the second volcano coming on alert at low levels, in addition to the eruption underway to the south. The biggest volcanic eruption of note actually came in South America. The Tungurahua volcano sent ash and smoke quite high over the west coast of Ecuador. Coming to space, the inner planets begin to align here. Sans our little blue rock. The trio will be together in a couple of days. Tropics watch. We've got Dolly in the Gulf of Mexico, slated to head northwest and will likely affect parts of Texas if she's not doing so already. Meanwhile, another system south of Mexico isn't going to cause major disruptions, but it will ramp local quake watches and will, of course, monitor for any track changes. 2 are easily visible here. Quick follow-up to our tornado warnings. These late summer storms are nothing to mess with, and if they come to your area, be on alert. Pictures of the storms and devastation are coming in, all due to a low found hundreds of miles to the north in the Hudson Bay. It swings its convergence line south and smashes together air masses of vastly different temperature, moisture, and electric potential. Fluid dynamics says they must equalize, and the chemistry says that releases a lot of energy. Take heed in these zones tonight, please. Got a low over Italy, drawing a lot of moisture north onto the continent. That's the genesis of tonight's warnings there. Low at New Zealand stands firm, still only affecting small portions of the country, while a high-low convergence pushes moisture atop southeastern Australia. Storm watches act accordingly. The Mobile Observatory project is in Kamloops, British Columbia, and tonight I'll be speaking at Thompson Rivers University at 7 p.m. Check it out if you're in the area. We've got the remaining global storm watches and shots of our star to close at 6:40 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:40 a.m. local time. That's the news. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
Thanks to Preserve. I'll always the links down in the About tab if you would like to click on it. Beginning in the news, first of all, I started the news a couple minutes late. I apologize, and then you had no video because I forgot to set an option in my software on my end. So anyway, I wanted to start out with this because I do believe that it is of a great importance to us. So I thought I would share this story. Russia has threatened nuclear attacks, says Ukraine Defense Minister. Kiev has received threats of nuclear retaliation from Russia through unofficial channels if it continues to fight pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. The Ukraine Minister of Defense, Valery Helety, I probably pronounced that wrong, announced on his Facebook page on Monday, and I've been saying this, I've been mentioning this, social media, you know, I'd rather we get the information one way or another. And I understand that we can't trust our sources with mainstream news, but really, is social media really the way? I mean, I understand, like us, passing this information around to each other through social media, and it's a great use for it. It's a much better use for it than pictures of cute kittens, selfies, your car, whatever the case may be. I mean, it's okay to have some of that, but to make it about that itself, we're going to be getting into that later. That's narcissism, and we're going to be getting into that later. But I'm not quite sure that Facebook is the best way for officials to report important news. But there again, really at this point, it might be about the only way, because again, the news media, the mainstream news, just isn't covering what's important. And if they do talk about what's important, usually you don't find out the truth. The Russian side has threatened on several occasions across unofficial channels that in the case of continued resistance, they are ready to use a tactical nuclear weapon against us. The minister goes on to say Russia's hybrid war in Ukraine is at an end, accusing the Kremlin of attempting a full-scale invasion. He called out for Ukrainian forces to consolidate and begin building defenses against Russia, insisting today the operation to liberate the eastern Ukraine against terrorism is complete. Helety's cryptic message comes after rapidly escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine over continuing reports of Russian military activity near the separatist-held regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, something like that, in eastern Ukraine. Italian newspaper La Repubblica reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin had said in a phone call to European Commission President Jose Manuel Barroso he could take Kiev in 2 weeks if he wanted to. Well, I'm sure he could. Putin also alluded to potential nuclear conflict when he told Russian youth campers last week, "Thank God, I think no one is thinking of unleashing a large-scale conflict with Russia," he said. "I want to remind you that Russia is one of the leading nuclear powers." Last week, two groups of Russian soldiers were captured by Ukrainian forces, which the Kremlin insisted had not entered Ukraine as a part of a military operation. The Kremlin has gone on record to deny any military involvement in Ukraine, insisting that all Russians fighting for Ukraine Eastern separatist forces are not stationed on military duty, but are there as volunteers, despite mounting evidence that a full-scale military operation is underway. But Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko accused Russia of direct and undisguised aggression, shortly before the Ukrainian military said it had retreated from a strategically valuable airport near the city of Luhansk, however you say that, today after coming into contact with Russian tank battalion. Western leaders have condemned Russian military activity in Ukraine, with British Prime Minister David Cameron branding Russian troops' presence in Ukraine unacceptable and unjustified, while Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel called on Russia to cease its aggressive behavior. What cracks me up here is we're supposed to support Israel taking land from Palestine, and we're not. I don't get it. It gets tiring when we're told who our enemies are, who our friends are, who's supposed to be doing what, who's not supposed to be doing what. It's gotten to the point of total control and ridiculousness in this country. The Federation of American Scientists estimates Russia's total inventory of nuclear warheads at 8,000. Oh, wow. No, I'm sorry. I guess it's 8,001,600, which are strategically operational. So, again, I think the world is a chessboard, really. I don't think it's really so much country against country. I mean, if you personally have an issue with just some random Russian or some random Israelite or some random Palestinian or some random Iranian or African, or you pick the country, then you've got personal issues that you need to deal with. You know, because if somebody doesn't personally do something against you or your loved ones or a nation as a whole, I mean personally do anything, then you have no concern. You have no business even having an opinion about them, to be honest. It's just the way it is. And that's not opinion, that is a fact. That's a fact. There's billions of people on this earth I don't know, and I don't care about what they're doing as long as they're not harming anybody. I don't care. I just don't care. Let them do what they want to do. You know, it's crazy. And it boils down to self-responsibility and narcissism. We'll get there later, if I can keep from it. So here's a bad idea I've seen coming. And a lot of people might think it's a good idea. Yeah, okay. Because it sounds good on the surface. It's like the push to drug test welfare recipients. It sounds really good on the surface. But if you use a few brain cells more than the surface thought, you'll realize that taxpayers have to pay for those drug tests. Most people that use drugs know how to fake the tests, or you know what I mean, pass the test, even though they shouldn't be passing them. And in the simple fact that it's the kids that's going to be going hungry, and you know those people, those parents of those children are going to A, feed and clothe their children one way, or B, find a way to buy drugs to still continue to use drugs, okay? So then what are they going to do? Do you think they're going to get work when there is no work? So then they're going to do what they have to put food in their children's mouths. You know, and I hate to say, but in some cases, they're going to have to do what they do to keep continuing to do their drugs. And I don't think that's as much of an importance to these people as what's getting pushed. My point is they're going to resort to crime to be able to do that. So really, it's something that needs to be thought through a little bit more. You know, it needs more than 165 character Twitter thought. I mean, it's absurd. That's about all a lot of people give these days is a quick little thought, oh, yeah, good, let's go. Same with these body cameras, right? You know, I wonder how many Jews in Nazi Germany, before they started rounding them up, said, well, I don't care what they do. Don't do anything wrong. You don't have anything to worry about. I wonder how many of them did that. I wonder. Police in the St. Louis suburb where a white officer shot and killed an unarmed 18-year-old have started wearing body cameras. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports the Ferguson police began wearing the cameras Saturday. Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson told the newspaper officers had the devices on during a protest march Saturday. The march marked the August 9th shooting death of Michael Brown by Ferguson officer Darren Wilson. Jackson said the department was given about 50 body cameras by 2 companies about a week ago. Company representatives offered training to officers Saturday on using the devices that attach to their uniforms and record video and audio. Jackson said each officer will get one to use. So here's the thing, right? First off, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. When I say they, I mean the elite, those that are wanting to do. When they first put up the traffic cameras, right, they should just, if they were using their heads, they would have just put the cameras up there, and they wouldn't have been trying to use it for revenue generation, because that built up a lot of issues. A lot of people took issue to it. A lot of people demanded them taken down, and indeed, in a lot of places, they have had to take them down. Not enough places. They need to have to take them down everywhere. The truth behind those is to track people. Period. It's to track people. It's not for your safety. It's not. And it really wasn't even supposed to be so much for revenue generation. It was to be able to track people. It's that simple. Same thing with these body cameras. Same thing. Look, I don't agree with having the scanners on cars, on the cop cars. The scanners that scan every license plate of every vehicle that goes by the car. No. That's not reasonable suspicion. You are not using any form of reasonable suspicion. None. It's like a fishing expedition with a net. You see what I'm saying? Really. Seriously. I know that, no legal terms, or I don't know if it's quite a legal term, but legal slang kind of, you'll know what I mean by fishing expedition. It's like when you get pulled over basically for some bogus BS reason, like your license plate light is out, okay? Or he thought he saw you swerve, or something like that. And then they walk up to the car and they're doing everything they can to actually find something to charge you for. That is a fishing expedition. Okay? So that's kind of like a quote-unquote fishing expedition with a net. Okay? It really is. And I understand if you're driving on suspended license for whatever the reason is that they say that, okay, I get it, right? If you weren't in that position or whatever, in that situation, then you wouldn't have had to worry about enough. There's supposed to be reasonable suspicion. Again, I'll say it again. I wonder if the Jews, or some of them, in Nazi Germany, before they started rounding them up, said, well, if you don't do nothing wrong, you don't have to worry about it. Because I'll tell you what, those that are actively oppressing the people are saying we're just following orders. They're repeating the same words. We're just following orders. And I'll bet you our American public are repeating the same words that the Jews did before they got rounded up. I guarantee it. We're not smart enough to learn. We're not. You can't even get anybody to pick up a history book to see what is going on. You can't do it. They don't care. And it has to do with the lack of self-responsibility and the narcissism that we'll get to here in a minute. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. because it's destroying our country. It's destroying our way of life. It's destroying everything. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. Let's get on to the next news story, which happens to be an older story, but we're going to be going somewhere with this, okay? I'm sure we've all heard about this. I had not reported on this until now. This is the first you've heard me do any kind of report on this, and I'm only doing so for a particular reason, to prove a point. Police report shed light on girl who fatally shot instructor with Uzi. A 9-year-old girl who accidentally killed a shooting range instructor with an Uzi in northern Arizona had said immediately after shooting that she felt like the gun was too much for her and had hurt her shoulder, according to police reports released Tuesday. Her family members were focused on the girl because they thought she was injured by the gun's recoil and didn't immediately realize instructor Charles Vega had been shot until one of his colleagues ran over. The family, whose hometown hasn't been revealed by investigators, had taken a shuttle on August 25th from Las Vegas, about 60 miles south of the Last Stop Range in White Hills, Arizona. Once arriving there, the girl, her parents, sister, and brother took a monster truck ride before heading out to the shooting range. The report did not say why the family had gone to the range or why they let the little girl handle the Uzi. The girl's father was the first one in the party to handle a weapon. After the father fired shots, Vega showed the girl how to shoot the gun, showed her a shooting stance, and helped her fire off a few rounds. Then he stepped back and let her hold the Uzi by herself. She fired the gun, and its recoil wrenched the Uzi upward, killing Vega with a shot to the head, according to the report. The girl dropped the Uzi, and Vega fell to the ground. The girl ran toward her family, who huddled around her as she held her shoulder. Another instructor rushed over to help Vega. The other children were then taken away from the range, according to the report. The report describes the family as shaken by the accident. Prosecutors are not filing charges in the case. So let's talk about this. Everybody wants to point a finger, so let's talk about this. Whose fault is this incident? I'm giving you a moment to think. It's the instructors, for two reasons. For one, I have no issue with a 9-year-old girl shooting a fully automatic weapon. I take no issue in that. I think it's great. I think it's great she had that opportunity. I do, and that is an opinion. But the instructor really messed up here. Number one, he should not have stepped away. He should have stayed close. If it would have been me, I would have took my arm and I would have put it over top of just behind her wrist. I would have probably, by the look of the stance of the little girl holding the gun in the picture I'm looking at, I would have taken my hand and placed it over top of the hand that's holding the magazine, the forward hand. That way, when that recoil kicked up, it could have only went so far. That's number one. Number two, I wouldn't have given her a fully automatic with a full magazine. I'd have put like 6 rounds in it or something. That's it. Maybe not even that. Maybe 3 or 4. You know? At least to start out. Don't hand her a full magazine, fully automatic weapon with a full magazine. I understand he popped off a few shots with her, assisting her. But still, I wouldn't do that to an adult. I just wouldn't. It's unsafe. My son Brett was 8 years old when he shot an SKS. I didn't even have the magazine in it. Put a round in the chamber. A round. Didn't even have the magazine. I didn't want to take a chance of him getting scared or the recoil or any other reason for him to pop off a second shot. That's called responsibility. It's called thinking ahead. So I wanted to bring this up for a reason. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because there was a poll that was done, and let me look on the old evil book. I can't remember who did the poll. It was done by CNN. CNN did a poll, and I can't find the poll now. It's gone. But the poll was, a quick vote. Should children be allowed to learn to shoot guns under adult supervision? I knew this was coming. I said it the first second I read the story about the 9-year-old girl. I knew what was coming. And they're going to try and put in legislation to say that children can't fire firearms. You got to be X amount of age to fire a firearm at all. And the reason they're going to do that, you know, Holder said it himself. We have to brainwash the public into thinking guns are, you know, bad, more or less. I'm paraphrasing. I am not for brainwash the public. He said those very words, brainwash the public. We can't let them put this type of legislation in. There's not much of a gun culture left in this country, and if we take guns away from children, you know, being able to actually shoot a real gun, you're probably going to destroy the gun culture. You know, they'll take it how they can get it. Whether they can do it right away or they have to do it over a period of time, they will take our rights however they have to do it. They'll wait us out to an extent. I don't think they're... Actually, I think they're getting about to the point where they're tired of waiting us out. And they can, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't want to get all involved into that. You've heard it before anyway. So anyway, let me move on to another story. Again, I'm going to prove a point. Story just popped up. I don't even think there's a link down below there because I seen it after I set up the show. Woman dies in freak barrel racing accident. We'll just play the video. That way I don't spend as much time talking about it. Sounds like a plan to me.
Tragedy strikes a nationally recognized barrel racing event in Waco. A horsewoman died while competing in the 25th American Novice Horse Association shootout. News Channel 25's Christiana Gross joins us live at the
It was a shootout.
Center. Christy,
that
people
was the
were
problem.
shocked and saddened by this news.
It was the name of the event.
And it was a much different tone today, but despite what happened yesterday, racers competed in the final day of the event. The 25th annual ANHA Shootout is a 3-day barrel racing and poles competition, but yesterday it took a tragic turn.
There was an accident that occurred when a horse struck a lady during the barrel race yesterday.
Janine McMinn died at the hospital after her fluke accident.
It's part of showing horses. Not here, but I'm sure it's happened elsewhere.
Later that night, McMahon's daughter Tiffany Wooten ran a barrel race in her mother's memory with the support of the entire crowd. In a Facebook post, Wooten said her mother died doing what she loved. Event personnel say nothing like this has happened here before. Waco PD is calling this an accident and says they won't investigate any further. But Extraco officials say they'll conduct their own investigation to try and find out what may have caused this tragic accident. Live in Waco, Christiana Gross, News Channel 25.
Watching that news show, and this is so wrong for me to say, but watching that, I didn't preview that video before I played it just then. Wow, I thought my show was kind of lame and produced poorly. And I'm not on TV. I'm on YouTube. Anyway, so I wanted to point that out. I'm really not going to harp about it too much, but woman dies in freak barrel racing accident, right? So should we ban barrel racing with horses? Should we ban barrel racing with horses? Most people would say, well, no, are you stupid? Well, then I guess maybe we shouldn't ban children from being able to shoot a firearm, right? Because of a freak accident, because of a unresponsible firearms instructor. You know, and maybe he wasn't that unresponsible, okay? I personally think he does, but I'm looking at hindsight. The accident happened, I'm looking at it, and it's easy to do that. It's, I'm sure if he knew that he was about to get plugged in the head with a round out of an Uzi, and I'm sorry to sound so cold about it, but I'm sure if he would have knew that ahead of time, he would have approached the matter in a different way. I'm positive of that. I'm sure of that. So it's easy, again, for me to speak in hindsight on the matter. But again, it was an accident. It was a freak accident, just like this. I've got another situation. And I don't like making light of death. And, this actually comes from my hometown, this story here. I'm going to approach it with a little bit of grace, or try to. Because any time there's a death, especially when it involves a child, it's bad. It's very bad. But again, I'm here to make a point. Police, Highland High teen dies in a high-speed Corvette crash. Again, this is my hometown. 16-year-old girl died from injuries sustained in a Friday night single-vehicle crash on Michael Road in rural Highland. I know all those country roads. Don't ask me why. Actually used to live for a short time right off of Michael Road. But anyway, the St. Louis Medical Examiner's Office confirmed the girl as Alexis D'Amico of Grand Fork. I apologize to the family if I said that wrong. A junior at Highland High School. The medical examiner said the St. Louis area hospital reported that Alexis was unresponsive at the scene and taken by helicopter to the hospital where she died. The investigation is ongoing, according to Captain Mike Dixon of the Madison County Sheriff's Office, but it appears the girl was driving the 1994 Chevrolet Corvette at a quote-unquote high rate of speed at about 7:30 p.m. Friday on Michael Road near Iberg Road. Evidence at the scene indicated the Corvette was traveling westbound in the 13,000 block of Michael Road when it left the roadway for unknown reasons and rolled over at least once before coming to a stop in a field on the north side of the road, according to the police. Dixon could not say if the driver or her passenger, another 16-year-old girl, were wearing seatbelts. The car's passenger, also from the Highland area, was at home and expected to make a full recovery, Dixon said. Her injuries were potentially serious, but she is expected to make a full recovery. Dixon said where the crash occurred on Michael Road is straight but hilly. He said a lot of kids have been down at the scene of the crash since Friday night and have erected a makeshift memorial. I'm not going to go on further with the story. You get the point of what happened. And if you know the road, I've drove that road. Again, I used to, for a short time, I lived out off of Michael Road. And, yeah. It's sad. It really is. I know exactly where this happened at. And that road, they talk about that it's straight but hilly, and it is there. But it's also got, it's real bumpy, right? Like anytime you come up like to another road or anything like that, a cross-section road, there's generally a hill there, near some driveways and stuff. There's a little bit of, when I say hills, I don't mean a hill, I mean like a hump in the road, And a Corvette, if you've ever driven a Corvette or something similar, a lot of Camaros are similar as well. They don't do humps like that very well. You hit them with any speed at all, it will launch the vehicle. And I'm assuming I wasn't in the car or watching from the side of the road. I am assuming that's what happened. She was at a high rate of speed, hit a hump in the road, and it put the car airborne. And she probably couldn't recover when it landed, being a young 16-year-old driver without the experience and whatnot. That's a shame. Beautiful little girl, and it really saddens my heart. My thoughts and prayers to the family. It bothers me. I don't know her family. Again, I'm from there. That's where I've lived most of my life. I'm unaware of the family or this little girl, and it's tragic. But I had to report the story to ask a question. Do we ban cars? Do we change the laws that 16-year-olds can't drive? We can sit there and we can legislate and we can do all kinds of things, but nothing is going to fix the problem unless we teach people to stop being narcissistic. And I'm not saying that's what this young lady was doing, but there is no doubt she wasn't taking self-responsibility. And it's sad she lost her life. And I'm no different. When I got my driver's, oh my God, I was crazy. I was absolutely probably one of the craziest people on four wheels. It was nuts. Me and my friends, my goodness. I honestly don't know. I don't know how we are still here. I don't. One of my buddies, I'm not going to say his name, but I quit keeping track at 13 cars, and that's not some kind of evil, you know, that's how many cars I quit keeping track that he had rolled over. Okay? We're fortunate. We're fortunate. That's all there is to it. I mean, we were insanely nuts in a vehicle. So I'm not saying anything against this young lady. What I'm saying is, just as this young lady, we didn't have that self-responsibility. We didn't have it. And we got lucky. She did not. She did not. That's how important self-responsibility is. But see, making laws isn't going to stop that. Wouldn't have stopped that. Just wouldn't. No law on the earth is going to stop somebody from doing something that sounds fun. You know, and we didn't drive crazy because we saw somebody drive crazy on TV or, you know, anything. We were just nuts. No excuse for it. So there's another story. I want to move on. I've got 14 minutes left, and I've got a point to make here. Teachers Union president threatened to punch Common Core's opponents in the face. So I'm going to play the video from the actual YouTube because that thing loads up slow. And shows as a 12-minute video. He says it within a couple of minutes in, so I'm just going to play the video. But don't only pay attention to him threatening to punch people in the face, but pay attention to what he says directly after that as well, because it's even worse, in my opinion. So let's play that video.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Mulder. I'm the president of the United Federation of Teachers Local 2. I stand before you in complete support of resolution number 2. And I understand, and let's be clear, the history of standards. Standards are our tool. Those are the tools of teachers. And we understand that No Child Left Behind, when they started comparing one state to another, the teachers said it was unfair and we needed a common set of standards which we should all be working off. And as a local who had one of the worst implementations in the entire country of Common Core, I understand my brothers and sisters' frustration and anger about the Common Core. And I have heard the stories about how Eli Broad, Bill Gates, Joe Klein, and a flying saucer full of Martians designed these things to brainwash us all. But I want to bring this back to the classroom and to the teacher.
Pay for that one.
There has never been a set of standards designed that took into account the diversity of all of the students that we teach. That is up to us to fix that. And I can tell you now in New York City, since we have gotten rid of Pearson, and we now have teachers unpacking the Common Core, we are seeing his promise. But the point, and what bothers me more than anything, is the idea that the American Federation of Teachers would back down from a fight. The standards are ours. Tests are ours. We are fighting now because they took tests away from them to bring them back to us. You don't back down from a fight. They took our standards away from us. We're going to take them back from them because that is our tool. We are the teachers. They are not the teachers. It is our profession. So I stand here in support of this for one simple reason. If someone takes something from me, I'm going to grab it right back out of that cold, twisted, sick hand and say it is mine. You will never take what is mine. And I'm going to punch you in the face and put you in the dirt because this is a teacher. These are our tools. And you sick people need to be away from us and the children that we teach. Thank you very much.
Let me make something perfectly clear to you, sir. My children are not yours. They're not. Stop that logic. It's a dangerous one. Extremely dangerous one. And I'm not just saying that as a threat for myself. I'm saying that from a threat from anybody that uses their brain on this planet. Do not mess with their children. Don't do it. I wanted to play that because it has gotten that bad. You even heard the guy make a comment that was filming this video or whatever that he'll pay for that one. You're right. He will pay for that one because there is an agenda behind Common Core. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at it and say, whoa, wait a minute here. It doesn't take a genius to see what they're doing with it. It just takes somebody that's got the self-responsibility to look. The math is absurd. The math is absurd. I don't, you know, I can do math pretty well. I don't admit to it often, but I will now. I can do math pretty well. But to look at that, I look at it and I'm completely, absolutely lost. I don't know what they're getting at, why they do it that way. It makes no sense. None. And then when you look at what they teach in Common Core about history, that's when you see the agenda. You want to see the agenda of Common Core? Look at the history lessons. And as long as you got a single free-thinking brain cell left in your head that the fluoride in your water didn't take over, you'll get it. You'll understand it. You'll see it. You'll recognize it. And hopefully, hope to God, you will take their self-responsibility to join the other free thinkers out there, the others being responsible to fight it and get it out of our school systems. Before we go on any further, we don't have much time left, but yesterday I forgot to bring this up. I put a link down in the About tab yesterday with the title War Comes Home, the Excessive Militarization of American Policing. It links you to a PDF. Please download yourself a copy of it and go over it, please. I know that's twisting arms. 98 pages. It's a report by the ACLU. I'm not, a huge total backer of the ACLU. They do some good stuff. They do some not so good stuff. It's just like any other big organization. You got a bunch of people there to make a bunch of money, and they do just enough to keep themselves in business. And, they do some good stuff. They do some bad stuff. But this is a pretty good report. I've read it. This is a pretty good report. It is an accurate report. It's just from June of 2014, so it's a new report. It's another thing to pay attention to. Read it. Take that self-responsibility and read it. So let's get on to my rant. We've only got 7 minutes of rant. You guys are lucky because the actual news stuff took me longer than I thought. So you're fortunate. You get a short amount of time hearing me rant. Unless I go over and decide there's some important things I need to say, then you still got to put up with me. See, we're down to 6 minutes. Anyway, so Responsibility, self-responsibility, whatever you want to call it, and narcissism. How are the two connected? Well, narcissism. First of all, let's real quick, I'll burn up a little more time for you here. And I'm going to spell this wrong because I do it every time. No, I'm not. See? I got lucky. Excessive narcissism, the definition, excessive or erotic interest in oneself and one's physical appearance. And it goes beyond just physical appearance. It's anything, you know, self-centeredness arising from failure to distinguish the self from external objects, either in very young babies or as a feature of a mental disorder. Yeah, as a feature of a mental disorder. Think about that. The psychology, extreme selfishness with a grandiose view of one's own talents and a craving for admiration as characterizing a personality type. Yeah, it is technically. I mean, yeah, everything's a mental disorder now. I'm not approaching it at that angle. There's a reason for that as well. But what we're seeing on social media right now is absolute narcissism. The constant selfies, all the time, the constant selfies, the constant, you know, I'm bored, somebody entertain me. That's narcissism, okay? Whether they're constantly posting pictures of their puppy or whatever, it's narcissism. It's reaching out for that constant attention, okay? Constant attention, give me attention, give me attention, give me attention, you know? When they need to, like, get some yarn and some knitting needles or something and do that, or the guy needs to go out and work on the car or something. Do whatever your hobbies are. Do that, you know, when you reach that point that you have to constantly rely on social media to get attention, it's when you need to click that X button in the upper right corner. And you need to go do something real. Go do something real. I sit at the computer all the time, but I don't sit at the computer to get attention. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of learning. You see me post stuff if you're on my personal Facebook. You see me post stuff, but I'm not posting stuff every 5 minutes. I'm not really looking for attention. Sometimes I post stuff to, for a good laugh. Sometimes I have a stupid random thought and figure I'll share it. But I'm not doing it to get attention. I'm not doing it all the time. I'm not, the majority of what I post is information. Information that I feel others need to know. Things that are actually important, not the fact that Joan Rivers is in a hospital or whatever. That's not important. It does not affect our daily lives. If you're a close personal friend or a relative of Joan Rivers, then it shouldn't matter that much. Shouldn't matter that much. Sorry. It's not about how good of a comedian or actress or whatever. It's not about that. We've got more important things to worry about than an idol, which we're told not to have by our Heavenly Father. We're not supposed to be having these idols, and you got people that will wrap themselves up into that. Or who's on the disabled list from the football team or baseball team or whatever, and oh my God, he's not going to play the whole season. Really, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's like auto-narcissism or something. I don't know. We'll make up some words tonight. How's that sound? Auto-narcissism. When you're worried about someone else's oneself because how it might affect your own self and your entertainment. Auto-narcissism. Let's put it in the books. Let's call Webster tomorrow. Demand it get put in there if it's not. Anyway, so narcissism and self-responsibility. How are the two interlinked? Well, when one gets so wrapped up into those things, into one's self-image, into their own needs, their desires, they start to lack self-responsibility. In fact, once those things become such a thing that overwhelms their life, that becomes the reason for them living almost, then they stop partaking in what's truly responsible. Okay? It's that simple. That simple. And I'm sure we all do that to some extent. I don't think there's many of us that don't have something that we don't absolutely need to do or have to do or whatever, but it's something that's their own little, and that's fine. That's fine. But to ignore things like what's going on with the Common Core, to allow legislation to be put in place because somebody has a tragic accident, and allows legislation that takes away our rights, our liberties and stuff, you know, those aren't good things. And those that are in control of things are using our Achilles heel to be able to achieve their agenda. They're attacking us humans with full force and winning. And they're doing it by feeding us, by feeding our desires, our wants, and we become more narcissistic. And then we become less responsible. You know, and again, you know, there was nothing, any of the stories I covered, you know, the young lady in the Corvette, you know, it's a tragic accident. Yes, self-responsibility would have stopped that accident. You know, the 9-year-old that shot the instructor, you know, in hindsight, I could show you how there's a couple things he could have done to be a little more responsible that would have prevented that accident. Now, as far as the lady riding a horse, I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, we could stretch it and say, don't get on the horse. But, you know, I mean, some things you just take a risk no matter what, and you have to accept that risk when you do it. And when you walk out the door, you take a risk. You don't even have to walk out the door. You know, just getting up out of bed, you take risks. You're always taking risks in life. And if you're not, you live a very, very sad life. You have to take risks. You have to take risks. But if you have self-responsibility, you can minimize those risks. That's a fact. You know? I mean, there's not a lot to really be said about it. I mean, my suggestion, my only advice, is if you participate in what you could see in yourself as narcissistic things, try and cut back on them. You know, if you're allowing things that shouldn't be so important in your life to cause you to avoid the things that would be responsible in your life, you need to reprioritize. But the most important thing, you know, because I'm probably speaking to the choir in this show, the most important thing is if you see this activity, point it out. Stop being a people pleaser. Don't be a mealy mouth. Point it out. Make it known. Narcissism, or any variant of it, narcissistic or whatever, it's going to become a daily word. I assure you, it's going to become a daily word. Maybe not always on the show, but it's going to pop up somewhere in my life every day. I guarantee it, whether it be social media or whether it be here or somewhere, I will point out narcissism now. I will do it. And I highly suggest you do it too. It's not about making people happy. It's about saving humanity, and that's not a far stretch. It's about saving this country. It's about saving our liberties. It's about the most important thing on earth and beyond earth. Because if you open up that good book, it'll tell you about it too. It's ridiculous. You know, that should be the first reason. Belief in God, belief in the Word of God, that should be the number one reason not to be narcissistic. To speak up when you see other people being narcissistic. But let's try and take this the easy way, because it seems like humanity, for the most part, has gotten so far away from that written word. Let's just go with reasons that anybody can deal with. I don't know. I'm just trying. I'm just a man trying to make sense of this. I can't make any sense of it when I look at it, because it's just, I don't understand it. I don't. But see, I purposely pulled myself away from society years ago when I seen it going on, because I had no interest in it. I had none at all. I don't watch TV. I don't. I have no interest in watching TV. I might watch a movie once in a great while or something, but I don't watch TV. I don't get wrapped up in that stuff. And there's a good reason why. Because I don't want to become narcissistic. I really don't. I seen it. I seen it a long time ago. Had no interest in it. I watched it as MTV went from playing music videos. You remember when MTV stand for music television? Wow. And I think they still call it that, but now it's like reality television. But I watched how MTV went from playing music videos. And by the way, first off, playing pop and soft, pop and rock and roll and some heavy metal and all that, 80s stuff, 80s, 90s stuff. And then they went into rap, and the whole lyrics and the subjects changed. The musical lyrics, the subjects of the musical lyrics totally changed. And then they got into reality TV. And the next thing you know, that reality TV on MTV spilled out into every frickin' channel on the television. And remains there today. And we wonder what's wrong with this country. All we have to do is put down the cell phone, stop taking the selfies, right? Stop worrying about The Walking Dead coming on or whatever TV show you can't live without. Take responsibility. If we don't, we're going to lose all of it. We either lose it for a short time or we lose it for good. It's your choice. I've made my choice, but I can't do it alone. It's going to take a lot of us. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of dedication. It's going to take a lot of self-responsibility. But we can do it. And if there's anybody on this planet, I will say the Americans can do it. There's a lot of ways we are soft. When it comes to war, the majority of the public has no idea. I don't have no idea. I've never been to war. I've never been in the military. I have no clue. But at least I can think, and I do think, it's got to be a terrible situation to be in. And I don't mean just for the soldier. I'm talking about for the general public. We haven't seen war over here. I think we're about to, but we haven't seen it over here. So in some ways, Americans are soft. But we're innovative. We're creative. We're strong-willed. And at least the Americans I remember will be damned before they let somebody else take them down. Let's hope there's enough of us left. That's what I got for you. God bless you. God walk with you. God walk with all of us. We're going to need it. Be one with your spirit. Talk to Him. Take everything I say. Take it to Him. Take it to God and ask Him. I'm not your leader. Neither is Obama. Neither is Boehner. Neither is frickin' Joan Rivers. God is your leader. Stop forgetting about that. I love you all. I really do. I'm frustrated, but I love you. Have a good night. Talk to you tomorrow.